6 tips to maximize success. Now, I've tried to start online business before, and like most people that eventually find success, I've made some mistakes. And I wish I knew a lot of the stuff I'm teaching you right now, really, because it took me a long time to figure out how to create a business that was profitable, that worked. And I just show you the 6 steps to start a bliss, a lifestyle business that is profitable. And I'm going to share with you these 6 tips that are based on my research on what other people recommend and my own experience. I hope they really help you, because I don't want you to go through the same stuff that I've done when I've made these mistakes. So, first tip: focus on a real world problem. Um, I've heard this expression a lot. Actually, Alexis Ohanian, who was uh, the individual that really helped me launch Grumo Media. I guess indirectly he did it. He didn't even know he was doing that, because I sent him this free video for Hipmonk where he was the marketing manager, and he loved it. And then because he was very connected, I got introduced to a lot of startups and was able to basically start a Grumo Media within a month. Right, very lucky. He had a campaign which was the tagline was "Make people things want," because he's worked for he's seen many startups. He's an investor in many startups, so he advises a lot of startups. He's a partner, not a partner, but he's an advisor at Y Combinator, probably the top startup incubator in United States. And he said the main thing that people forget to do is build things people want. So, and that means that you're solving a real world problem. And what happens is that when we're going through the ideation process, we try to build things that we think they would be cool. That okay, that would be awesome if it existed. But the reality is that the fact that you think it's awesome, it doesn't translate into a business already. You need to go through the validation process. So this is very important. Do not assume that your idea it's going to be marketable, that people are going to buy it. You have to validate it. So make sure that you're actually solving a real world problem. Be passionate about solving that problem. We talk about the importance of passion. I'm not going to repeat everything here, but one thing is finding a real world problem, but then are you actually passionate about solving that problem? And there's 2 things that could happen here. And I think either way is fine. You could actually be very passionate about that problem. For example, there is this nonprofit organization that I'm very fond of, and it's called Wachi.org. And the idea is that they crowdsource medical treatments for people that cannot afford it, and it's such a wonderful idea, right? If I were to start something like that, I'd be extremely passionate about solving that specific problem, because I think it's great. And of course, the founders of Wachi.org are extremely passionate about it, because they saw that problem when they were traveling, seeing that all these people couldn't afford medical treatments that were actually very affordable to somebody like living in the first world, but maybe they didn't have the $500, $1,000 that could make a huge difference if they had that little operation or those medicines. So what they do is that they profile these people, and it works like Kickstarter kind of, where they crowdsource money from people around the world, so these people can afford these treatments, and they have a very, very transparent system, so you can make sure that every single dollar that is crowdsourced, that is raised towards this treatment, actually goes to this person, to this individual, so they can get that treatment, and then they have a follow-up story to ensure that you actually saw that the money that you contributed made a difference. Anyway, this is a long story of an example of a company that I could be extremely passionate about, right? And that's wonderful. That would be fantastic to work on something like that. But what if you're passionate not so much about the specific problem that you're solving? You're working for like maybe somewhat of a boring industry. I don't know, accounting or financing or something, cloud computing, something that you're not particularly passionate about that specific thing, although you know you're solving maybe a very important problem. What you're passionate about is actually building the company, and I think that's completely fair. because the actual process of going from an idea to validating it, promoting it, hiring people, raising money, and growing and going through all the ups and downs that startup or building a company has, that is a huge challenge that can be extremely satisfying, and maybe you have a passion for that. So whether it's building companies or the product itself that or solution that you're trying to build, or ideally a combination of, make sure that in any of those areas there is true, genuine passion, because it's going to be a very difficult ride whether you succeed or not. Don't work alone, get help, co-founder. This is a mistake that I made, and I think a lot of people that they start with an idea, they're like, okay, I can do this all myself, and I just create a shopping cart somewhere, and I put a PayPal button, I create a course, and do it. And it may work, but really, your degree of success it's multiply almost by an order of magnitude the moment that you involve other people. I'm not saying hiring them as full-time employees. You don't need that, but involving them on giving you feedback, finding mentors that can give you real honest feedback, not just your friends and family, or people in the industry that understand the product and the business and the market that you're working in. Involve people, ask other people, try to see what your competition is doing, even call them if possible. I remember when I started Grumo Media, the first thing I did is trying to find out which other studios were doing something similar. I looked them up, and then I sent them an email and say, by the way, I'm doing this, could we just connect? And everybody that I connected was happy to talk to me. Obviously, they wouldn't disclose every single detail about how their company work, but they would give me insights, saying like, okay, well, this is the videos that we're doing right now, or this is a little bit of our workflow. We share information, and that was extremely valuable both ways. So all the time, do not work on a bubble, because basically you're gonna work 10 times slower than if you involve other people. Find a mentor with industry experience. So there you go. Don't work alone, and find a mentor. So that's something I found out after I made a pretty big mistake. No, I wouldn't say mistake, because I learned a lot. I think the way of thinking of your failures, it's a lot easier to digest if you think them as learning experiences as opposed to failures, which has a negative connotation. But the first things I learned was finding a mentor. So the second time around, when I started Grumo Media, I actually joined a mentor speed dating event. So you went to this event, and you had like 12 different mentors sitting on a desk each, and then you have 5 minutes to ask them questions, or pitch them your idea, and they would give you their feedback. And from that event alone, I was able to meet incredible people that gave me really good feedback. And I also met other people that were not mentors, but they were other startups that eventually became my first clients at Grumo Media. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to meet other people in your industry and to get mentors. You'll hear this a lot. Find somebody with relevant experience on your industry that can guide you. Now, if you raise money, if they're really involved, there is standardized ways of bringing a mentor, because obviously they're not just going to give you free advice forever. So there is ways where you can give them a little bit of equity, which on a startup would be 0.5 to even 1% of equity, but you can research that online. We're talking about creating lifestyle businesses online, so it's unlikely you're going to be giving equity away because you didn't raise money or anything like that. You want to keep it simple. So what you're going to do is try to provide them value in other ways, maybe by way of introducing them to other people, by way of, if they ask you for a little favor, helping them back. There's a lot of mentors that just enjoy giving away without asking anything in return. It's just something that is very enjoyable. I've done that a lot, actually. I had a lot of people coming to me and asking me questions about how I run my business, and I've been really happy to meet them for coffee and share as much advice as I could. Really rewarding thing to do. 5, get user feedback early. So when I'm saying involve people, also involve your potential clients, and think long term. This is also important. It is kind of a difficult thing to be able to think of what you're doing right now, of what's more important to right now, the present problems and issues that you have to solve in order to move ahead day to day. You know, you have a customer support issue, you have a bug on your program, you have a complaint, you have things to do every day, and you may lose a little bit of the long-term vision. So it's important that, first of all, you have a long-term vision to start with, and second, that you don't lose sight of that vision. So whenever you have to make important decisions, you can ask yourself, is this decision I'm making going to help me fulfill the long-term vision? Yes or no? And if it's not, then choose in favor of the one that would put you closer to that long-term vision, whichever it may be. And you can think long-term in terms of like, where would I like to be in 3 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you can write those down. And obviously, as you keep growing and things will evolve, you'll change, you can adapt that. But it's really important to always have somewhere where you're aiming at. Don't work aimlessly. Don't say, I just want to have an online business, and then you maybe have a blog and you're generating some money, and you're like, that's fantastic, but what's happened after this? What happens when you double your revenue? Because if you have some of those answers before you reach those milestones, it's gonna help you decide what you do at that stage. I've reached a point at Grumo Media where I could. So I'll give you a personal example. Like almost all businesses, once you've proven the business model works, you can grow indefinitely by spending more money on marketing, hiring more people, and building a larger corporation. Or you can decide to just stay at a certain level of a certain size, whichever feels comfortable with. So what I did was extrapolate how would Grumo Media look if we doubled revenues, if we made $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, all the way to $10 million in revenue a year. What would that look like? How many employees would I need? How much overhead? How big of a space would I need in order to put all these people together? What systems would I have to have? So I'm actually trying to envision what a company like mine, but 10 times larger, would look like, and then I have to envision: is this what I want? Do I want to have a $10 million animation studio or a $20 million animation studio? And the answer was no, because that would go against something that I feel is a priority in my life, which is being able to have a lot of freedom to do other things, right? To be able to spend time with my family, friends, travel, and spend time doing reading and doing hobbies, right? So it's hard to be very growth focused and at the same time be able to have a lifestyle that affords you to have a lot of freedom and do whatever you want, right? But it's important you ask yourself that question, especially once you figure out your business model, because then you'll run into a situation where you're gonna have to ask yourself, where do I want to go? So keep asking yourself this continuously, so you don't lose sight of the long-term vision. Hey, did you enjoy this video? If you want to see more like this, just subscribe here. If you want a free gift, click here. Yeah. Which one is going to be the one you click? La 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 li 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 li.